Hi, I'm Carol. There was a time when my life was something straight out of a Hollywood rom-com, a picture-perfect story framed by love, affluence, and unending happiness. It all started when I met Alex during our senior year of college. We hit it off instantly, like two pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that fit perfectly together. Carol, I've never met anyone who just gets me the way you do, Alex had told me one evening as we watched the sunset from a hilltop near our campus. I feel the same way, Alex. It's like we're meant to be, I replied, feeling as if the universe had aligned just for us. It wasn't long before we were planning our wedding, a grand affair financed largely by Alex's family. Alex's father, Richard, was the epitome of a self-made man. He owned a large company that had its fingers in multiple pies. From real estate to tech, the guy had an aura of gravitas combined with an affable charm that could disarm you instantly. Richard was ecstatic about our union. He went all out for the wedding, sparing no expense. From a dream venue to haute couture outfits, from a 5-course gourmet meal to a string quartet that played as we exchanged our vows. It was truly a day to remember. During the planning phase, Richard called me into his opulent office one day, filled with mahogany furniture, leather-bound books, and a giant desk that could probably serve as a dance floor. His office was the embodiment of success. Carol, I'm so glad you're going to be part of our family, he began, offering me a seat on the plush leather chair across from his desk. If there's anything you want, any particular arrangement or decoration you've dreamt of for the wedding, consider it done. I smiled, deeply touched by his generosity. Richard, you've already done so much. I couldn't possibly ask for more. Oh, but I insist. This is a special day, not just for you and Alex, but for our families coming together. From that day on, Richard treated me like a daughter. It was a connection beyond money or social standing. It was genuine familial love, or so I believed. We're so blessed to have you, Carol, he said at the wedding, raising a toast. Here's to new beginnings and a lifetime of happiness. Alex stood by my side, his arm wrapped around me, his eyes twinkling with love and promise. I'm the luckiest man alive, he whispered into my ear as we danced our first dance. For a long time, I believed I was the luckiest woman. We were a perfect triad, Alex, Richard, and me. It felt like nothing could ever break our happiness, our unity. I moved through each day filled with a sense of fulfillment and security. Our apartment became a home, furnished with love and laughter. I had a decent job that kept me busy, and life was essentially a well-oiled machine operating on the fuel of mutual love and respect. At that time, it seemed like the universe had laid out a carpet of roses for me to walk on, and I was naive enough to think it would last forever. Little did I know that thorns were hidden beneath those roses, ready to pierce through the illusion of my picture. Perfect life, but that's a story for another chapter. For now, let's linger on the happy times a bit longer. Because, trust me, once the storm hits, there's no going back to the person you used to be. Life has a funny way of catching you off guard, of taking your neatly constructed world and turning it upside down. The axe fell suddenly. My job was gone. Layoffs swept through the company, and despite my strong performance, my position was eliminated. When I received the news from ER, I was devastated. I'm sorry, Carol. You've been wonderful, but we're downsizing. You can use me as a reference anytime. My boss, Sarah, had said, her eyes filled with genuine regret. I found myself sitting in our apartment, staring at the walls. They were filled with pictures of our wedding, vacations, family gatherings, all reminders of a life that now felt fragile. For a few moments, the weight of uncertainty felt too heavy to bear. Alex was supportive when he found out. Don't worry, babe. This is just a hiccup. "You'll find something soon," he had reassured me. While his words were comforting, the insecurity of unemployment gnawed at me, not just as my thought of Richard, not just as my father-in-law, but as a potential employer. He had always treated me like family, and his company was diverse enough to incorporate someone with my skills. I scheduled a meeting with him, and as I walked into his grandiose office, a familiar setting that now took on a new significance, I felt a mix of hope and trepidation. "Carol, come in. Come in. What brings you here?" Richard greeted me warmly, gesturing for me to take a seat. Taking a deep breath, I laid it out. "Richard, I've been laid off. I know your company has positions that align with my skill set, and I was wondering if there might be an opportunity for me." Richard looked thoughtful for a moment before breaking into a reassuring smile. "Your family, Carol. And besides, your qualifications are impeccable. Consider it done. How does heading our financial operations sound?" Relief washed over me like a warm wave. "That sounds amazing, Richard. I won't let you down, I promised. You never could. I'll have the paperwork sorted. You start next Monday," he declared. Just like that, I found myself a part of Richard's empire. The position was not just a job. It was a high-ranking, well-paying role that came with a lot of responsibilities, but I was up for the challenge. My team was wonderful, welcoming me into the fold as if I had been there for years. My office was spacious and well-equipped, a constant reminder of Richard's generosity and the safety net that family provided. Within the first few months, I streamlined some outdated processes, and the department's performance metrics improved noticeably. My colleagues respected me, and work felt rewarding. My fears and insecurities about job loss and financial instability started to fade away. By the end of the year, I had advanced to a position higher than I had ever imagined, pulling in a salary that even exceeded Alex's. I felt invincible, like I was driving on a highway with no speed limits, my eyes set firmly on the horizon, unaware of the impending detour that would take me down an entirely different road, a road darkened by betrayal, deception, and vengeance. But that's a chapter yet to come. At that point, I was content, wrapped in the comforting illusion that this safety net of family and career would hold no matter what. How naive I was to think that safety nets couldn't tear, that the very hands that set them up couldn't slash them apart. When you're scaling the mountain of success, it's easy to forget how dizzying the height can be, how precarious your footing might become. On the morning that my life came tumbling down, the air was filled with the usual office chatter, the clinking of coffee mugs, and the incessant tapping of keyboards. I had just reviewed the quarterly financial report and felt a sense of satisfaction. My team had outdone themselves again. We were exceeding our goals, breaking new grounds in efficiency. Then, my phone buzzed with an unexpected message. It was from Richard. "Carol, can you come to my office? Need to discuss something important." The message was unusual. Richard was always more formal in his communications, even with family. My heart thumped erratically as I made my way to his office. Knocking softly, I entered when I heard his deep voice say, "Come in." He didn't look up from his desk when I walked in. Papers were strewn about, and he was deeply engrossed in what appeared to be a legal document. Finally, lifting his gaze, he gestured for me to close the door behind me. I did. "Carol," he began, his eyes not meeting mine, "you've been an exceptional asset to this company, and I owe a lot of our recent success to you." However, I felt a chill run down my spine at that however. It was like a switch had flipped, turning the atmosphere cold and unforgiving. "Alex has expressed his discomfort with your growing position and salary within the company. He thinks it's affecting your relationship, and he doesn't like the dynamics it's creating at home. So I've decided to let you go." I stood there, stunned into silence. My mind raced, trying to comprehend what I had just heard. It was like a jigsaw puzzle, except the pieces weren't fitting together. You're firing me because I'm more successful than your son. My husband. I finally spoke, my voice laced with disbelief and an undertone of growing anger. Richard sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. I wish it didn't have to be this way, but at the end of the day, Alex is my son. His happiness is my priority. I can't let anything, even someone as valuable as you, stand in the way of that. The words were like a slap in the face. Family, love, years of commitment, all reduced to a power play, a show of patriarchal control where the woman had to be put in her place. So, where does this leave us? I asked, my voice breaking. Am I just supposed to pack up and go as if nothing happened? Yes, Carol. I think that's best for everyone involved, Richard replied, finally meeting my eyes, but only with a cold detachment. In a daze, I walked back to my office. My eyes glanced over the reports, the emails, the photos on my desk, a visual resume of my dedication and achievement, now reduced to mere objects in a room I would soon vacate. I packed up my belongings in a cardboard box, a cliché in a tale so twisted yet fitting. Each item I placed inside felt like another nail in the coffin of a life I had so lovingly built. My team looked puzzled, worried even, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. As I carried the box out of the office building that day, the weight seemed more than physical. It was the heaviness of dreams shattered, trust betrayed, and love questioned. The walls of the castle we had built came crumbling down, leaving me standing in the ruins. But amongst those ruins, something else was taking form, something hard, steely, and resolute. It was the resolve to rebuild, but not before toppling the remaining towers of a false kingdom that had no place for a queen. Little did they know, revenge was a game I was ready to play, and I had just drawn the first card. The drive home was a blur, a dissonant mixture of highway noise and intrusive thoughts. Each mile that passed seemed to distance me further from the life I had known. When I finally reached our apartment, I found Alex sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone, blissfully ignorant of the storm that was about to hit. I placed the cardboard box filled with my office belongings on the coffee table with a thud. It was an audible punctuation to the silence that filled the room, a glaring testimony to what had just happened. Alex looked up, his eyes meeting mine. "You're home early. What's all this?" Taking a deep breath to steady myself, I let it all out. "I got fired today. Your father fired me because you couldn't handle the fact that I was doing better than you." His face flushed, a deep red. "Look, Carol, I didn't want this to happen. But things were getting complicated. The guy started making jokes. It was affecting our social life. I thought if you stepped back a bit, affecting our social life." I cut him off, incredulous. "You mean affecting your ego? You'd rather see me unemployed than deal with a few jokes? Are you that fragile?" "It's not just about me." My dad agreed. "You were becoming too involved in the business. It felt like we were losing our personal lives to office dynamics," he tried to explain. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you conspired with your father to fire me? Instead of talking to me about your insecurities, you took away my livelihood?" "Conspire is a strong word," Alex mumbled, his eyes evading mine. "Oh, what would you call it then? A family intervention? A career adjustment? Carol, can't we talk about this? Maybe it's a sign that we should focus on starting a family or something," he suggested, his voice tinged with desperation. The audacity of the suggestion took me aback. Start a family? With this level of trust and mutual respect? You must be joking. His face sank, perhaps finally realizing the gravity of what he had done. "What are you saying, Carol?" "I'm saying I need space to think." "I'm going to my mother's. We'll talk about the rest later," I stated, picking up a small bag I had quickly packed. "Carol, wait. Let's not make any hasty decisions," he pleaded, but his words fell on deaf ears. I was already out the door, my mind a swirling mass of thoughts and emotions, but among them a plan began to take shape, a route appearing through the fog of betrayal. I knew what I had to do. Within a week, the divorce papers were filed. It was a cold, clinical end to a relationship that had started with warmth and promise. Our lawyers spoke more than we did, reducing our years together into assets and liabilities to be divided. I didn't want alimony. I didn't want any form of financial dependency on the man who had cost me my job. What I wanted was something that no court could grant and no lawyer could negotiate. I wanted retribution. Living with my mother provided me with the time and emotional space I needed. I enrolled in a few freelance projects, working tirelessly to rebuild my career. But as I climbed the ladder of professional success, there was also a parallel track running in the background, one that led to a reckoning. The man who had been my husband had sown the seeds of his own downfall. I had been the gatekeeper to the financial secrets of his family's empire, and I had a memory as sharp as a blade. Piece by piece, I began to gather evidence of the irregularities, the off-the-books deals, and the black accounting that had kept the company afloat. The tower was built on a shaky foundation, and I was about to remove the cornerstone. The empire was going to crumble, and I would be there to watch, standing tall on the rubble of their deceit and betrayal. The stage was set. It was time for the final act. In the world of business, reputation is currency, and secrets are the locked vaults where companies stash away their dark truths. I had the key, and it was time to open Pandora's box. Over months, I meticulously collected all the necessary evidence. Anonymous email accounts were set up, and encrypted files were prepared. I was ready to pull the curtains on the stage where the final act of my revenge would unfold. It was late one night when I finally hit the send button. Emails loaded with incriminating financial data were sent out to key players, investigative journalists, government tax agencies, and even a few competitors who would relish the chance to see Richard's empire crumble. It felt like setting a time bomb, and I had the detonator. The next morning, the bomb went off. Headlines erupted across financial news platforms. Massive accounting fraud uncovered at Richard's company. Social media was ablaze with speculation and disbelief. By midday, stock prices had plummeted and investors were pulling out. When the phone rang, I already knew who it was. It was Richard, his voice trembling with a mixture of fury and panic. "Carol, did you have anything to do with this?" he bellowed as soon as I picked up the phone. "Why would you think that, Richard? I'm just a former employee who got unjustly fired, remember? You think ruining me and Alex will make things better? What's the point? You've already got the divorce. The point, Richard, is that you two don't deserve a happy ending. You made your choices, and these are the consequences. You've destroyed everything. Do you even realize the magnitude of what you've done?" Alex is devastated. He should have thought about consequences when he decided to let his ego ruin his marriage. I replied, icy calm. "I hope you're happy now," he spat out before hanging up. The truth was, happiness had nothing to do with it. It was about justice. It was about standing up against those who had betrayed me, who had belittled my achievements and undermined my worth. It was a message loud and clear. I am not someone to be trifled with. Soon after, legal investigations began. With the evidence I'd provided, it was a straightforward case. Richard was removed from his position, and several board members resigned. The company was finished. Between penalties, legal fees, and lost investments, they declared bankruptcy. Around the same time, Alex reached out. We met at a cafe, a neutral location befitting our now distant relationship. "Carol, is there a way to fix any of this? Can't we just put it all behind us?" he asked. a pleading look in his eyes. You don't get it, Alex. This was never something that could be swept under the rug. You made a choice, and you have to live with it. So what now? We live our lives hating each other. I don't know about you, but I'm going to live my life. You just won't be a part of it. Leaving him sitting there, I walked out into the sunlit street. I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. My phone buzzed with a message from a headhunter about a new job opportunity. It was a higher position than the one I'd had at Richard's company, with a significantly better pay package. As I stepped into a new beginning, I looked back one last time at the chapter I had just closed. It was a story of love and betrayal, of success and failure, and ultimately of justice served. My revenge was complete, but more importantly, so was my liberation. I was free, not just from a toxic relationship and a stifling job, but from the shadow of other people's expectations and judgments. I had reclaimed my life, and I was ready for whatever came next. As I started my new job, it was like breathing fresh air after being submerged underwater for too long. The team was supportive. The work was engaging, and I was valued for my skills and experience. But what made it all truly satisfying was that I had reached this point on my own terms. I wasn't Carol, the daughter-in-law of some corporate bigwig. I was Carol, the competent and accomplished professional. Weeks turned into months, and life settled into a new normal, or as normal as it could be after such a turbulent period. My phone buzzed with texts from friends, invitations to weekends away, and promotions to celebrate. It also buzzed with news alerts. Richard's company had finally shuttered its doors, Alex had moved out of the state, and some of the board members faced legal repercussions. The castle they had built on lies had been reduced to dust, and I had been the one to light the fuse. A year passed since the fateful day of my firing, and I found myself in a cafe sipping coffee, going over a presentation for work. That's when I saw him. Alex walked in, looking weary and defeated. Our eyes met, and there was a moment of mutual recognition. "May I?" He gestured towards the empty chair across from me. "I guess one coffee won't hurt," I replied, setting my laptop aside. He sat down, nervously stirring his coffee as he spoke. "I've been doing some soul-searching, Carol. What I did was wrong, and I'm sorry. I wish there was a way to turn back time." "Don't we all?" I said, taking a sip of my own coffee. "I never wanted any of this," he continued. "I never wanted to lose you, to lose what we had." I looked him squarely in the eyes. "But you did, Alex. You chose to jeopardize our future to protect your ego. I've moved on, built a life for myself. Can you say the same?" He sighed. "I've started over, taken a job in another city. But everything's different. It's like I'm living under a shadow." "Well, sometimes shadows are cast by the choices we make," I responded. He looked at me, perhaps hoping to find a trace of the love that once was. "Is there a chance, even a small one, that we could start over?" "No, Alex. This is the end of the line for us. There's no turning back. No do-overs, you made sure of that." For a moment, he looked like he was about to say something, but then he closed his mouth and nodded. I guess I had to hear it to truly understand. "Goodbye, Carol." "Goodbye, Alex." As he left the cafe, I realized this was the final piece falling into place, the closing of a chapter that had spanned years of my life. I felt neither joy nor sorrow, just an overwhelming sense of closure. I had no idea what would happen to Alex or whether Richard would ever rebuild his empire. But honestly, it didn't matter to me.